This video is taking a look at Prager University. They came out with a video called Russian Collusion and the Death of Journalism.
Credibility is the lifeblood of journalism. The mainstream media is dead. It wasn't killed by competition from the internet. It committed suicide. We know the approximate date of its demise, 2016. We know the cause, the abandonment of objectivity. We even know the method of the suicide, the full participation in a conspiracy to destroy a political candidate and then, ultimately, his presidency. This is not only my judgment, it's the judgment.
So real quick, he's talking about the Mueller Report. So I just wanted to go through that just a little bit. So this is, I believe, page 12. So it's talking about the Internet Research Agency, how this carried out the earliest Russian interference operations identified by the investigation. And then this is highlighting the Internet Research Agency. So this was a Russian organization funded by, it's like some Russian oligarch. And it highlights that the main thing they were doing, they were conducting social media operations, trying to sow discord in the US political system. Okay, then it's saying key ways that they did that. They would create fake social media accounts. So these were fictitious. And it was designed to attract US audiences. And then they would basically address divisive US political and social issues, claiming to be US controlled activists. And so that's just a little bit of what they did. Now this report goes through and it highlights how they were basically doing a lot of like pro-Trump posts. Okay, yeah, right here, for example, by early to mid 2016, IRA operations included supporting the Trump campaign and disparaging Hillary Clinton. So again, even if it can't be proven 100% that Trump's campaign was necessarily working with Russia, they had extensive data compiled to show that Russia was trying to help the Trump campaign. So the whole idea that there was nothing to the Mueller report, that doesn't really fit with the research that's been done. Why doesn't this guy ever bring up the Mueller report at any point?
Of the most prestigious publication in the field of journalism, the Columbia Journalism Review. In January of 2023, the review published a 26,000-word, 4-part investigation into the conspiracy commonly known as Russiagate. It was written by 𝑨𝒃𝒐𝒖𝒕, a highly regarded former New York Times reporter with decades of experience. 𝒃𝒐𝒐 concluded that every major claim in the Russiagate narrative was false. Let's step back and consider what this means. For some 5 years, the mainstream media, the New York Times, Washington Post, ABC, CBS.
Now, real quick, when they talk about every single claim was false, I hope that they address what every single one of those claims were. Because there's evidence that they were trying to help Trump. Now he's going to highlight that all of these news organizations were working together to basically spread this false message.
Subvert an American election. We're talking about dozens of news organizations and hundreds of reporters working in concert to spread fictitious claims in thousands upon thousands of news articles, TV segments, podcasts, and opinion pieces. Given 𝒃𝒐𝒐's reputation and that of the Columbia Journalism Review, the article should have been front-page news and led every TV news program.
Now, questions could be, were news organizations like purposefully spreading that idea? Like, also, there is evidence, like there were people in Trump's organization that were meeting with Russian oligarchs. Okay, so this is an example where it's highlighting, this is like page 146, so it's highlighting how Paul Manafort was meeting with 𝑘ilmennyk and how they talked about like events in Ukraine. It says Manafort briefed 𝑘ilmennyk on the Trump campaign. So again, the idea that like no one in Trump's organization was like talking with any like Russian oligarchs, like that doesn't really hold up to scrutiny, which that, like, even if you can't prove there was collusion, you have to wonder, like, well, was there a reason why they were looking into it in the first place? I understand that Trump and William Barr, they were trying to get out in front of the Mueller report early on, and they were trying to say that there was no collusion. This is an AP article. So I was saying AP fact-check Trump Barr distort Mueller report findings. So it highlights right at the beginning, saying that like his team is twisting the findings of the report. Said so like Barr basically said there was no collusion, and that's not the case. And what it clarifies here, saying the facts, allegations of collusion were not proven false in the report, nor was the issue of collusion addressed in the report. So if you go through the Mueller report, basically what this is saying is that they're not really analyzing the word collusion. What it did say was that there wasn't sufficient evidence. He had not collected sufficient evidence to establish or sustain criminal charges. But it also notes that there were Trump campaign officials that had basically like refused to testify or had provided false or incomplete testimony, which made it hard to get a complete picture. So again, the idea that there was no collusion, it's like, well, it's like there wasn't enough time spent, there wasn't enough evidence potentially that was like searched out. But you do have Paul Manafort meeting with Russian officials. You have Russian social media companies or Russian social media actors basically trying to convince people in the US. They were pulling for Trump, which begs the question, why did they want Trump to win? Why did they think that Trump would be better for their country?
It didn't. Given Girth's conclusions, you would expect the media would engage in serious soul searching. It didn't. The media that acted as the stenographer of the conspiracy simply ignored Girth's report. In short, they lied, and then covered up their lies with silence. Even Girth, a veteran newsman, was shocked. Only about a dozen out of the 60 journalists he reached out to spoke to him. As Girth describes it, not a single major news organization made available a newsroom leader to talk about their coverage. One can only wonder what these newsroom leaders would have told him. The picture that emerges from Girth's investigation is a morass of malfeasance, greased by naked ambition and ideological bias. This list of offenses is so voluminous and so far outside the lanes of accepted journalistic practice that there...
Isn't that kind of ironic for PragerU to talk about basically like political bias when they basically have videos where they're trying to convince people that like they're basically omitting the concept of like political realignment and trying to convince people that like the Democrats, like trying to make a link in people's mind between the Democratic Party and like slavery, when again there was a huge party realignment. So kind of interesting stuff there. This is kind of interesting. So this is highlighting how basically the Trump organization, like through Don Jr., they were talking about doing like a development in Moscow. So again, the whole idea, even if you can't 100% prove there was collusion, they had reason to be like they had reason to be investigating ties to Russia when you have like this Moscow development that they're talking about. You have Paul Manafort like meeting with Russian oligarchs. You have Russia creating fake social media accounts, trying to sow discord, trying to create chaos in the US, and also promoting Trump. Those are all fair reasons to look and try to find if there were ties between the Trump campaign and Russia. So PragerU, again, extremely partisan, trying to tell their audience what they think basically trying to tell their audience what they believe their audience wants to hear.